Go.
In our group debate, we will discuss the pros and cons of home-based ABA and Tele-ABA services. We also hope to provide you with the ethical concerns relating to both of these methods of service delivery. My name is Christy. I will serve as your moderator. For the pro Tele-ABA side, Tandalaya will discuss the
Hello.
issues.
Hello.
Dustin will discuss the cons of Tele-ABA.
Hello.
Maya will be on the pro home-based side of ABA.
Hello.
And Rachel will cover the cons of home-based ABA.
Hi.
Research has proven that early intervention improves outcomes for children with autism spectrum disorders, as well as other related disorders. As the rate of those diagnosed with autism increases, the demands for qualified personnel to provide ABA services has also increased. However, the number of those diagnosed on the spectrum far exceeds the number of BCBAs available. With technological advances, the telehealth field is growing and quickly becoming an alternative to on-site treatments. Our debate will be discussing the pros and cons for both Tele-ABA services and home-based ABA services. Through the information provided by the speakers, we hope to educate the audience and allow them to be able to make informed decisions in regards to these two unique service delivery methods. According to the Autism Speaks website, a 2014 survey of parents suggested that 1 in 45 children ages 3 to 17 have the diagnosis of autism. As you can see, the rate of those diagnosed with autism is steadily increasing. Because the numbers are from a parent survey, they do not officially replace the government estimate presented by the Center for Disease Control, which is 1 in 68 children. As the CDC's 2016 report, this number remains unchanged. Increased awareness and recognition of ASD, as well as improved diagnostic tools, are contributed to the increase in these numbers. Regardless if the increase is due to a better diagnosis or simply an increase in cases, more children will need services. The availability of qualified personnel to provide appropriate services to these children is essential in improving future outcomes. Early intensive behavioral interventions, specifically those based on applied behavior analysis techniques, have become the gold standard of treatment for those with ASD. Research has shown that children who received 2 years of one-on-one therapy for 40 hours per week achieved age-appropriate educational and adaptive behavior outcomes. However, a 2016 study stated that there were only an estimated 8,600 board-certified behavior analysis worldwide. The following visual also shows the prevalence of BCBAs in regards to each state's population. As you can see, the number of children diagnosed with ASD greatly exceeds the number of qualified personnel to provide services. The challenge is now to see that all of these children have access to the services they need and deserve. Unfortunately, there are other potential barriers to receiving the needed services. Johnson and Hastings identified several barriers such as lack of resources or staff, cost, inflexibility of program, and disruption to routines, as well as family constraints such as other children or perceived lack of time and knowledge. In-home therapy, as well as telehealth modules, are two possible ways to counteract these limitations. I'll provide the audience with pros and cons associated with these two treatment settings. Also, these settings may pose unique ethical concerns that we will attempt to address as well. We will first begin with the pro sides of Tele-ABA.
To get an understanding of Tele-ABA, this video.
What appears to be a typical snack time is actually a momentous occasion for Noah Cobb.
He sits at the table now every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Noah is autistic, and many of the skills children his age take for granted, like talking and eating, are daily challenges for this vibrant 6-year-old and his parents.
Before, I felt as a parent like a failure.
Absolutely.
I wasn't helping my child.
Then the Cobbs discovered the Celeste Foundation. This Florida-based group specializes in early intervention for autistic children using innovative video technology.
Through intervening early and often with a young child and teaching parents and caregivers and persons in their lives how to best cope with the challenges and the behaviors that occur.
A lot of people interact that just as if we were there.
Each day day begins with a video visit from the Celeste specialist who observe and guide the cops through speech and behavior strategies with Noah.
Good job, give me 5.
After just 3 months in the program, Noah's progress is astounding.
Stop!
His language has skyrocketed.
And now Noah's sitting at the dinner table for entire meals, something parents Josh and Tina never thought possible.
He went from having a screaming match to getting to sit for 2 minutes. He sits for 20 minutes now.
Yes, yes.
The biggest accomplishment? Potty training.
And he told me for the first time he had to go potty. For me, that was like the biggest thing. And I got on the phone and I called Josh. I said, you'll never guess what Noah did.
There.
Celeste professionals say results like these are possible thanks to their unique approach.
Particularly for those families who can't get services delivered to them. Families who live in rural areas or where services just aren't afforded to them.
When you're able to do it in your home when it's most needed and apply it when it makes the most sense, kids tend to learn much faster then, and certainly parents have more opportunity to practice their strategies too.
For the cops, having professionals in their home on a daily basis has given them a newfound hope.
Now I really feel that I'm helping him and he's benefiting from my interaction with him and he's actually enjoying it.
The Cobbs are just one of many families who live in rural areas where there isn't a population base to support the range of specialist services that some people need to access. Telehealth allows experts in the field to provide consultation and delivery of these services in remote areas. As we heard, the Cobbs found the benefits of Tele-ABA or applied behavior analysis extremely beneficial. As parents, our goal is to provide the best educational services for our children. For parents with a child with ASD or autism spectrum disorder, finding the best services can be challenging. As more professionals become credentialed every year, technological advances such as telehealth can offer alternative to services provided in person that may increase access to individuals with disorder or ASD to experts such as behavior analysis. The goal of remote consultation is to offer support training to monitor, train, and teach the parent how to run his or her own home ABA service program while under the guidance of a board-certified behavior analysis at BCBA. Tele-ABA is also being utilized within our communities as an additional academic for parents who do not wish to receive ABA services in a center-based setting, but in their homes. Telehealth has many advantages, including its cost-effective, accessibility, and flexibility. Such characteristics make possible for services to be provided across the country and perhaps the world. Telehealth becomes more feasible as access to technology with the expansion of technical among the population. This holds especially true today as over 83.8% of U.S. households report computer ownership, with 78.5% of all households having a desktop or laptop computer and 63.6% having a handheld computer. On top of accessibility, telehealth is flexible in such a way that experts can provide training, consultation, or delivery of service from any location where internet and to electronic devices such as a tablet or computer are available. For example, the expert may be located at his office and provide services through a laptop computer that is connected to a tablet or another computer located in the client's home. Then the expert can observe and communicate with the therapist, client, or client's guardians via the devices, built-in webcams, and microphones. All in all, flexibility and accessibility of telehealth can make services available to clients who live in remote areas while increasing the amount of individuals with ASD receiving high-quality services.
Next, are there any cons associated with this method of service delivery?
Thank you. Let me first state that telehealth services, or more specifically Tele-ABA services, provides access to families that would otherwise be incapable of said service. With the advent of video streaming and live video interactions via online multimedia platforms, the families in remote regions of the country now have access to clinical services in a relatively timely manner. However, limitations do exist and will prevent telehealth services from being more prominent and widespread. Though less ethical, but more technical in nature, this first concern discusses how the implementation of Tele-ABA services is due to the country's internet infrastructure that provides internet access to millions of Americans at any given moment. Per report in 2016 from the Federal Communications Commission, the benchmark speed for advanced telecommunication capability is 25 megabits download and 35 megabit upload. The FCC concluded in the report that these speeds continue to be necessary for consumers to fully utilize advanced services that enable these consumers to originate and receive high-quality voice, data, graphics, and video telecommunication. Roughly 10% of Americans, or 34 million people, lack these benchmark speeds and are without access to these advanced telecommunication capabilities. The following graphic further showcases the limited access to the features across the United States. The table from a recent FCC report illustrates the remaining percent of Americans throughout the country and in tribal and U.S. territories that are also without access to advanced telecommunication capabilities. This absence of access is due to the slow and limited deployment of advanced telecommunication capabilities from internet service providers in areas of the United States that lack the needed networking and technical support for these advanced speeds. This is particularly troubling for the percent of Americans in rural areas of the United States, where roughly 39%, or 24 million rural area Americans, are without access to these services. Rural Americans need access to Tele-ABA more than Americans in urban areas of the country, where more efficient and robust internet access is available. Without access to these telecommunication offerings, families will be unable to procure behavioral services in-home and may be required to have access to other locations that are equipped for that specific level of internet access, such as a university, library, hospital, or community center. Having to utilize these settings to gain access to behavioral services can pose a significant problem with the protection of confidentiality. One of the highest ranked concerns for families that seek Tele-ABA services via the web was the importance of personal privacy. Confidential information such as personable, identifiable data should be protected whenever transmitted, stored, received, or otherwise disposed of when utilizing a Tele-ABA model of service. This can become especially crucial when Tele-ABA services are provided to families that use communal devices that can be equally shared by other family members or strangers. Unauthorized disclosure or viewing of this information, however innocent or accidental, is more commonplace with both live interaction and store and forward interactions between the behavior analyst and client or family. These inadvertent or inappropriate disclosures can also be visual and auditory, such as an unauthorized viewing or hearing of video conference interactions with clients, video photos of the client, or viewing electronic health records that have been received from another provider or database. Per the BACB Ethical Guideline 2.06, Maintaining Confidentiality, behavior analysts have a primary obligation to take reasonable precautions to protect the confidentiality of those with whom they work or consult, recognizing that confidentiality may be established by law, organizational rules, or professional or scientific relationships. Behavior analysts have a responsibility to ensure the protection of confidential information and the personal privacy of their clients. When providing behavioral services via the internet, technological safeguards are necessary to keep all electronic interactions private and inaccessible by those who are unauthorized. For some families, the uncertainty of whether their confidential information or personal privacy is really protected is enough of a concern to sway the decision to utilize such web-based services. It is with that behavior analysts also have the responsibility to competently, ethically, and safely train and support the client and families with not only understanding the precautions that go into safeguarding confidential information, but utilizing the web-based services altogether. Stated by Boisvert and Hall and supported by another study by Vismara, is the time and expertise required to provide parental training and support for autism interventions via Tele-ABA services. Tele-ABA services may not provide sufficient training for all parents and caretakers to implement intervention techniques effectively. Some may need the traditional in-person support and coaching to maximize the effectiveness of the intervention. Others may require more time and practice to achieve fidelity. Also, lack of standardized measures during recorded parent-child interactions make it difficult to know how well the results would generalize to other families. Furthermore, effectiveness of any intervention may relate to how the parent perceives the practices fitting within families' daily routines or their lifestyles. If strategies are perceived as too complex to use on a daily basis, it becomes very difficult to reach a high quality level of competence. Tele-ABA services can also have a steep learning curve for using the telecommunication services and devices that pose limitations to the delivery of behavior treatment. Boisvert and Hall found in a scoping review on the advantages and limitations of Tele-ABA delivery that challenges exist and need to be considered when assessing the effectiveness of Tele-ABA services. The authors discussed a few disadvantages of using Tele-ABA services that concern the technological element and time component of the style of treatment delivery. The review found reports from parents and caregivers that the use of headsets, specifically wireless units, is particularly difficult to use when utilizing the telehealth service. This may be attributed to connectivity issues with the headsets when using the audio or video streaming services. Another presented issue was parents or caregivers remaining in view of the webcam for the behavior analyst to observe the session or treatment. This review discussed the challenge for the behavior analyst to accurately and effectively provide feedback and support when unable to properly view the implementation of the treatment plan by the parents or caregivers. A similar concern arises that Tele-ABA services that do not utilize dynamic or live video conferencing telecommunication, but static web-based training sites with videos and training materials for parents to read and study. The challenge exists with properly monitoring parents' website engagement, given that open features such as videos, articles, audio logs may not have been in active use. Applications that detect when website features are in use, such as a moving mouse, clicking a link, or scrolling down the web page, versus opened but inactive web pages, are methods to circumvent this challenge, but not all Tele-ABA services integrate this feature into their software or delivery. Overall, the behavior analyst has the responsibility to advocate for the proper amount and level of service provision and oversight required to meet the defined behavior change program goals per BACB Ethical Guideline 2.09, Treatment and Intervention Efficacy. If the appropriate amount and level of service provision and oversight cannot be provided, the behavior analyst has the responsibility to determine the steps necessary to achieve efficacy of the treatment. The final concern for why Tele-ABA behavioral service may not be the most effective option is the cost of the web-based service. Families will need to have access to a computer or laptop and other equipment necessary for telecommunication services such as internet access, webcams, microphones, and headsets. These devices can be expensive, i.e. cost, and are also essential to properly and fully utilize most forms of telecommunication service. The behavior analyst has the responsibility to consider additional factors when selecting interventions, including but not limited to efficiency, cost effectiveness, risks and side effects of the interventions, client preference, and the practitioner experience and training per BACB Ethical Guideline 2.09, Treatment and Intervention Efficacy. If the cost of the web-based service far exceeds what is reasonable to the family, the behavior analyst is responsible for identifying the steps necessary to advocate for intervention that meets the expectations and the budget of the family.
Let's also discuss the pros of home-based services.
The concept that early intervention services work is not a new one. Many studies have shown the potential benefits of children receiving services even as young as 2 or 3 years old. This is especially true in the case of disabilities like autism, where social skills and interactions may be difficult. Children ages 2 to 3 with autism who participated in home-based early intervention services saw improvement in many main areas of focus, including social and communication. Many children who are between the ages of 2 and 3 are not in school yet. Therefore, it may not be considered a least restrictive environment to bring that child into a therapist's office to receive services. If we are following Ethical Compliance Code 4.09 for least restrictive procedures, we will be ensuring that the client is receiving the best possible services in their least restrictive and most natural environment. Oftentimes, children who are that young see the most success when receiving services in their natural environment, which in most cases is home. I have also personally worked with older children who have a history of aggressive and self-injurious behavior. In these particular cases, it was safer for the therapy sessions to happen at home versus in an office setting. The families had prepared safe spaces where the client was allowed to go so that they were not a danger to themselves or others. Home-based services allow parents and siblings to actively be involved in and learn from the sessions as well. This brings me to my second point of team cohesion. Team cohesion is an important and vitally necessary factor for the success of home-based ABA services. In order for a client to see the most success possible, all of the people in their day-to-day lives need to be aware of and potentially responsible for current interventions. When the client is consistently surrounded by the intervention, and not just during therapy sessions, they will see greater success and generalization. A home-based team does not look much different from a school-based team or a team based in a therapist's office. The main difference is that there is generally more family involvement. This leads to everyone who lives with the client feeling as if they can make a difference. Of course, parents report both positive and negative things about home-based therapies, which is to be expected. However, the pros far outweigh the cons. Home-based services allow siblings, parents, and anyone else who lives in the home to join in on sessions and to receive training on how to implement interventions for when the therapist is not in the home. Many parents report initially feeling hesitant about allowing a stranger into their home, but the initial fear goes away when they were exposed to the benefits of ABA. Parents have also reported an increase in communication skills, which in turn has created better relationships between the client and their family members. This brings me to my third and final point of family and parent training. It is no surprise that the more people in a client's life who are capable of implementing an intervention, the more success that client will see. This also leads to greater generalization of the targeted skill. Of course, this involves parents and family members being trained on how to properly and accurately implement ABA services. In some cases, take data. This falls on Ethical Compliance Code 2.07 of maintaining records. With proper training, we can rely on the data from parents as well as the direct therapists. Building a solid team around the family is a key factor to the family's success in implementing interventions. This means finding both BCBAs and therapists who can build a rapport with the family while also keeping the ethical codes in mind. The ethical codes are in place to protect us as professionals. In most situations, I have found that families are understanding when I say that I cannot do something, such as pick up their child on my way to their house for a session, or accept a gift due to the ethical codes of my field. This complies with Ethical Compliance Code 1.06 of maintaining multiple relationships and conflicts of interest. Finding BCBAs and behavioral therapists who are capable of ethical and respectful choices when it comes to their clients should not be hard, as it is part of the framework of this career field.
What cons are associated with home-based services?
Home-based intervention, I believe, could be something great for parents who may be working from home or even parents that may want to be more included in the intervention itself. However, a lot of issues come into place when doing home-based behavior interventions. For one, I can see this having some ethical issues. For example, some parents can get a little too comfortable and may always try to ask you to stay for dinner, go on trips with them, etc. During this debate, I want to focus on some of the barriers that may be faced when it comes to home-based ABA. First, you may encounter problems with recruiting and training staff, shortage of staff, and lack of appropriate training for staff. In order for home ABA to happen, you must have some type of appropriate training to ensure that the client is getting effective treatment. Concerns over obtaining funding from education departments, financial costs of the programming, other financial and fundraising concerns is another reason, because treatment is expensive, and without the appropriate funding, you lack a lot of resources. Time and energy, family constraints is another barrier that is faced because it puts a lot on some families and may cause family issues as well. Also, problems with negative attitude of the authorities, taking education authorities to court is a very big deal and expensive. Difficulties such as disruptions of family life, invasion of the home, lack of support from the school, teachers lacking interest, and inflexibility of school routines is a major concern for home-based interventions. One of the journal articles titled Parents' Experience of Home-Based Applied Behavior Analysis Programs for Young Children with Autism discussed how parents reported that home therapy negatively affected their relationship with their significant other. For example, one partner being more engaged in therapy or having no time together, as someone needs to constantly gather or update stimuli and a lot of time spent on programming. So not only does in-home treatment comes with funding issues, lack of training and support from others, but it also puts a big strain on a family. Just going through this journal, it provides a broad outlook on how parent perception can determine the effectiveness of in-home treatment big time.
In conclusion, the growing prevalence of those being diagnosed on the autism spectrum has resulted in an increased strain on the behavioral system. This strain has produced a gap in regard to those who need services and the number of qualified personnel to deliver said services. As the need for early intervention services grows and technological advances continue, it is anticipated that telehealth will be the mainstream form of service delivery in the future. Telehealth has the potential to reach families without regard to geographical location, as well as those that may have a difficult time coordinating traditional services due to scheduling conflicts. Despite promising results, telehealth is still a new field that continues to develop and emerge. Therefore, caution should be taken prior to training parents or practitioners using this method. In-home ABA therapy provides hands-on, face-to-face treatment interventions. However, many families report having someone in their home not only disrupted their routines, but resulted in a lack of privacy and additional stressors. Parents often reported in-home therapy staff was only concerned about the child and not mindful about the needs of the entire family. From our speakers, you can see there are many pros and cons to both telehealth and in-home ABA services. There are many factors that may influence the decision of one setting versus another. What might be right for one family may not be a good fit for the next. Also discussed were possible ethical concerns that may arise for the practitioner in these unique settings. However, since research suggests that parental involvement in the early development of their children is crucial, it is very important that research continues to examine the effectiveness of training programs across settings. We will now have audience questions. The first is, how does our topic approach the core ethical principles?
Thank you. Behavior analysts are part of a culture of caring individuals who seek to improve the lives of others. They carry with them a set of core ethical values that help guide their everyday lives and play a significant role in basic decision-making in the practice of applied behavior analysis. Whether providing behavioral service via in-home, face-to-face intervention, or through telecommunication treatment models, behavior analysts are responsible for promoting and maintaining these core ethical principles in practice and in accordance with the Professional and Ethical Compliance Code for Behavior Analysts developed by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. Regardless of how the behavioral services are provided to the client, behavior analysts are obligated to ensure the best quality of treatment that is in the best interest of the client or family. Behavior analysis promotes independence and the development of skills that directly benefit the client and the family. When specifically referring to the model of treatment delivery in person or Tele-ABA, the behavior analyst is also responsible for being aware of recent research that communicates how these treatment delivery models can directly benefit the client and are in line and up-to-date methods and procedures of treatment. The behavior analyst must accept responsibility for their choices and how these recommendations satisfy the needs of the client.
What guidelines and codes of conduct relate to this topic?
Our group discussed several guidelines and codes of conduct that relate to our topic. 1.06 Multiple relationships and conflicts of interest explain that behavior analysts are to avoid at any time of multiple relationship that could potentially be harmful to treatment and the client. Though both treatment delivery methods, in person and Tele-ABA, have their potential to develop a multiple relationship between clinical team and client or family, in-person treatment models pose a more significant concern due to the direct contact of treatment and consistency of service. Behavior analysts have a responsibility of properly defining their professional capacity to the client by creating boundaries and examples of what is appropriate. 2.06 Maintaining confidentiality discusses the precautions that behavior analysts need to take in protecting the confidentiality of those with whom they work or consult. The behavior analyst has the responsibility of ensuring reasonable steps when protecting confidentiality of clients regardless of treatment delivery model, though research has shown that families are warier of confidentiality or personal privacy when services provided via a Tele-ABA model due to how their information or data is transmitted, stored, received, and disposed of. This concern also refers to the Ethical Code 2.07, Maintaining Records, where behavior analysts are also responsible for maintaining appropriate confidentiality in creating, storing, accessing, transferring, and disposing of records. The behavior analyst has the obligation to provide a reliable method of keeping information about clients protected and secure. Since Tele-ABA services rely on secure data networks for accessing and distributing information, passwords are particularly critical for when accessing these client files are necessary. One of the more significant guidelines related to this topic is 2.09 Treatment and Intervention Efficacy that explains that clients have a right to effective treatment, which is based on the research literature and adapted to the individual client. As mentioned in question 1, the behavior analyst has the responsibility of promoting and maintaining the most effective treatment that is in line with the best interest of the client and the appropriate behavior analytical research. As more research and data is collected on the implementation of Tele-ABA service, behavior analysts are obligated to determine the effectiveness of treatment, which means of cost effectiveness and risk to the client when treatment is delivered via telecommunication devices. Tele-ABA services may not provide sufficient training for all parents and caretakers to implement intervention techniques effectively. Lastly, the behavior analyst has the responsibility of utilizing the least restrictive procedure or practice that does not interfere with the individual's ability to acquire positive reinforcement or freedom of choice per BACB Ethical Guideline 4.09 Least Restrictive Procedure.
What research, publications, or current trends support each side of the discussion? A 2016 study conducted by Lindgren et al. Sought to determine whether challenging behavior in children with autism spectrum disorder could be successfully treated using telehealth module. The authors compared data on the outcomes and costs for implementing evidence-based ABA procedures to reduce problem behavior by multiple service delivery methods, which included home-based therapy as well as telehealth. All delivery models demonstrated successful reduction of problem behavior by training the parents. The mean percentage of reduction in problem behavior was greater than 90% across all service delivery methods. Total costs for implementing treatment were lowest for telehealth. This research demonstrated that parents can be trained to successfully implement ABA procedures to treat behavior problems associated with autism spectrum disorders, regardless of whether the treatment is directed by behavior consultants in person or via remote video coaching. Because ABA telehealth can achieve similar outcomes at a lower cost compared with in-home therapy, geographic barriers to providing access to ABA for treating problem behavior can be minimized. In-home ABA may be the best option when posed with technological challenges such as lack of internet or low bandwidth speeds. We have provided additional references from multiple peer-reviewed articles that support each side of our debate. Although our list is not exhaustive, we encourage you to seek further research in order to make an informed decision for what is best for you or your client's needs. Why is this important to the field of ABA and the interventions?
Barriers to receiving appropriate ABA treatment or intervention do exist for families that lack sufficient opportunities for program involvement. Families that derive from more rural or isolated regions of the country may lack the resources necessary to procure appropriate treatment for their children, and that are in great need of treatment. Tele-ABA services provide these families the opportunity to receive intervention in their home via the use of telecommunication devices, such as a computer, tablet, or mobile phone. Though restrictions exist for telehealth treatment models, such as overhead cost of required equipment, internet access requirements, and potentially limited opportunities for the behavior analyst to provide sufficient or necessary training and support to parent and caregivers, Tele-ABA gives these families the chance to receive treatment that is in the best interest of the client. Behavior analysts have a responsibility of promoting and maintaining effective treatment models across all clients, regardless of if treatment is provided via the computer or in-home. Our topic touches on strong points and concerns of how Tele-ABA are becoming more widespread and prominent in areas where these services are necessary. Research has shown the effectiveness of teletherapy and how the need remains to further develop appropriate interventions and treatments that successfully utilize this mode of treatment. Everyone has the right to effective treatment that focuses on their individual need.
As consideration of this enhanced practice and/or address current issues. Research has proven that ABA is the gold standard treatment for those with autism. However, the method of service delivery is an important consideration. As professionals, we have a code of conduct when deciding what is best for our clients. As mentioned previously throughout our debate, there are ethical issues to consider, such as boundaries of competence. Both settings are quite different from a single clinic-based treatment. Are you or your clients competent in the use of technological equipment to use telehealth effectively? Multiple relationships or conflicts of interest. As mentioned, home-based setting places at high risk for dual relationships or a conflict of interest. That is something the therapist should be cognizant of and know how to handle effectively. Maintaining confidentiality, treatment intervention efficacy, as well as environmental conditions that interfere with implementation are also important considerations. Will the treatment be effective in the chosen method of service delivery? Will there be barriers such as siblings or animals in the home? Will the parents intervene in the middle of a tantrum? Do the clients have access to the appropriate equipment required for telehealth ABA services? Is the child able to safely stay within the view of a camera for telehealth? Least restrictive procedures is also a concern when selecting the method of service delivery. Placing a young child in a clinic may not be the least restrictive environment, as they typically do not attend school and are not confined to a table during their normal daily routines. We must also look at concerns from the family's point of view. Transportation may be an issue for the family, therefore home-based or tele-ABA services may be the most feasible option. Also, family constructs such as extended family or siblings should be considered. Insurance is an important consideration for this method of service delivery as well. As each insurance company is different, ABA services may not be covered in specific settings. The families may not be able to pay out of pocket for certain settings, which makes services unobtainable. Telehealth has been proven to be a low-cost alternative to in-home or clinic-based treatments. Determining what sources will pay for the treatment and in what setting is an important consideration. We hope you have provided you with information to be able to make an informed decision for yourself or your client.
Thank you, everyone for being a part of our debate, and hopefully our information will provide you the knowledge to make an informed decision of whether in-home or Tele-ABA is an effective treatment model. Thank you, and that concludes our presentation.